following announcement has been paid for by the Celtic World Order.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome back to Celtic World Order podcast. As always, I'm Steve O'Matt. It's an absolute pleasure welcoming back here at the channel for another wee post-match breakdown. Maybe not the best breakdown of them all, let's be honest here, a poor result, but we'll get through it because there's plenty of talking points, I think, and as we look forward to games against Hibs, games against Rangers, and then into the new year, there's plenty of discussion points, I'm sure. And to join me, go over all that is Paul D. Mate, how you doing, mate? Glad to have you back on.
Aye, Steve-O. Aye, back again. Must have been no bad the first time, so I've got a second day in the job. So aye, we'll come to it. But lots of talking points about today, frustrations. But we're still top of the tree, but we'll need to take a wee tumble to ourselves, I think.
Well, that's it. Plenty to talk about. Not necessarily in terms of action, but there's a few takeaways from it. As you say, we're still top of the league. That is the most important thing. Let's not lose focus of that. However, as we all say here in the podcast, not everything's rosy and bright. You know, we could sit here as Celtic fans and just say, we could be worse, we could be them, or we could be this team, or whatever. You're only as good as your last game, and unfortunately, the performances haven't exactly been our shining best. Is there room for concern? Who knows? Let us know what you think, and we'll get through it. But before we do that, as we say, welcome back. If you're a new subscriber or your first time on the channel, make sure you hit that notification bell icon and subscribe. It costs you absolutely nothing to subscribe to Celtic World Order. That way you'll keep yourself up to date. You'll always stay notified anytime we go live or we do a pre-recorded upload. If you're one of our continuing supporters, then thank you very much. We really appreciate that. If you want to help out the channel, you can by way of donation. Become a member, $1.99. No additional content to get this time. It just helps you putting all this together. And finally, we're on the various other platforms. We're on X, we're on Blue Sky, we're on Spotify, we're on TikTok. So plenty of ways to connect and get involved here at Celtic World Order. Well, Paul, as we always say, let's get down to business. And, you know, for yourself, unfortunately, from a swashbuckling, all-action, some controversy, cup final and one in the cabinet to something very different, something very, very lacklustre, I think was fair to say. Something a bit frustrating and a snored draw. No goals, 0-0 away to Dundee. Plenty to talk about. Loads of changes, some forced, obviously, some injuries. I think a wee bit of sickness went through the squad there. But let's get through it. Schmeichel, Ralston in place of AJ. Welsh, Scales, Taylor, Rio Hatate, McGregor, McCowan, Yang. A very rare start there. Although, as we says, he showed a wee bit of promise in his cameos. Furuhashi and, of course, Maeda. We start off there, as we says, going to Dundee United. Fairly good season for him so far. You would have thought in face value that changes aside, there probably would have been enough in the tank there, but they're not.
There really should have been enough in the tank. Several changes that we obviously know about. There's been injuries. There's been some enforced changes. Obviously losing Forrest, he would have been vital and been able to be, coming into a game like today and offering quite a lot. Aye, you would think that's obviously Brendan Rodgers' first game there against Dundee United. Surprisingly, as we discussed on the last one. I don't think he'll forget it. I think the changes that he made, obviously some were enforced. I still don't know if continuing with Hatate in his current form was a wise move. I think Paulo Bernardo should probably started the game, if I'm honest. I don't know if there was a reason why he never. The midfield was totally non-existent. A couple of issues with that. I mean, it's another game where you're thinking just flat, as Tam Mac says there, just completely flat. There was an occasion during the game as well where Hatate slowed down a move only to pass the ball to the referee. Studs in the ball and pass. And I love Rio, but I can't sit back and hold my tongue much longer because he's been honking for several games now, and we've got away with it at times. But we seriously need to have a look at January.
I think that's fair enough. Obviously, in terms of going through the action, there's one or two wee points that we'll touch on. I think it's going to be more general a discussion about the forum, because I think I really want to get your thoughts, and likewise in the comments, let us know what your thoughts are on this situation. It's quite a polarising situation on social media. You see it, there's a very much split. I'm in the camp, and it seems that you are that. I would go as far to say, unacceptable. Now, people will then say, what are you playing at, Steve-O? Because, yes, if you see where we are this amount of games played side by side, all the metrics were better, goals scored, points, I get it. So there's an improvement there, okay? But there's nothing wrong with wanting to constantly strive for better and wanting to be at your best. And I think it's fair to say that even though we're winning games, we're getting points today aside, of course. The performances over the past couple of weeks have really dipped. And if you ask me and she says, what was the last truly good, solid performance that Celtic have put in? I would probably incline to say RB Leipzig. Now, you might look at the game against Ross County where we horsed them 5-0 in the first half. Yes, very nice. It tapered off. It could have been more, but I always caveat that with saying it is Ross County and look at their form. I mean, in terms of start to finish, where everything clicked, where we were really at our level. For me, that last performance was RB Leipzig, and it seems for whatever reason that since then that things have just been a wee bit laboured, a wee bit malaised, and you'll see the reactions to that. Some people are saying, top of the tree, that's all that matters. But then there's also the people who are on the air of caution. Now, I'm not saying by any stretch that I believe this would happen, but we remember what happened last season. 10 points, 9 points, 8 points, cruising. Bit of sticky for them.
Yep.
Other teams performing, getting points by one way or another, and we made it hard for ourselves. Now, I don't think that we'll allow history to repeat itself, but what camp are you in off the back of this, Paul? Are you think it's one of those days, or do you think the form needs to pick up and pick up fast?
It definitely does need to pick up. I'm not in the panic camp or anything like that at the moment. There is obviously that dump that you get sometimes, quite apt with that wee emoji there, if you plunge, but there is always that dump that sometimes the psychology after having such a high and the euphoria of that cup final. We've had time to recover physically from it, but we have obviously, as I say, lost one or two players through various things. There is always that wee bit of the game after such a high. We've seen it in Europe, we've seen it sometimes after winter breaks, or we're not having one of them this year, obviously, but you've seen it after sometimes European breaks, and then you have to come back to the bread and butter. And some players just look as if they're struggling with that, to be honest. But yeah, no major panic. We just need to get to January. It almost feels as if we're kind of tripping a wee bit over our feet to get to January. Once we get there and there's a bit more look at the squad, a wee bit of fine tuning, shall we say, new arrivals and players back, and just gear up for the second part of the season. But yeah, there's just a few bad performances today. We've done what we could to get the ball in the net, but there just seems to be this malaise. I've heard that term used before. The first time I heard that term was from Neil Lennon, believe it or not. It's the first time I ever heard him saying it. And yeah, you mentioning it there is exactly where we are at this stage in the season. There's a few players that are just dialing it in, and we just seem to lack that quality in the final third. I don't know what's happening with Kyogo, that chance he had.
Yeah,
we'll come to certain parts of the game, but
certainly we'll go on. I mean, obviously the eyebrows were raised. We know that there's been a bit of an illness that's went through the squad, so some big hitters were missing there, most notably defensively. When we look at it, we talk about coming in, you're saying guys are dialing in, we need a wee sort of shot in the arm. And the importance of January for me has really been put in the start focus. Now, we learned that, James Forrest is going to be out for a good couple of weeks now. He was a guy who, again, unfancied, but he was still contributing. But now we've had a look at the alternative options, haven't we? We've had a real solid dependency on Nicholas Kuhn and Maeda. And again, we always say it, with wingers, it's such a up and down, role in the team. You very, very rarely get a winger who every single week is red hot and continues that through. They do peaks and troughs. Those two have been phenomenal. So you can't really criticise, and I wouldn't criticise, but they have just at times their form has dipped, and we have really, really been dependent on them. And that's been seen by our lack of goals that we're acquainted to from our main strikers. So there's undoubtedly a need to try and get alternative options there. We tried them out today. We tried them out. We saw Yang.
Yeah.
We saw Palma. And I think the big takeaway is that neither are going to be up to scratch, really, are they?
No. We probably knew, and we just needed that final kind of piece of confirmation. That's what it felt like today. If there's anybody still left in the Yang and Palma camps, God love yous, but I really wish they were better than what they're offering. But for me, I have to say that they'd be first out the door, the two of them. There has to be a significant look at those positions, exactly where they're covering. I think that's a good point. We did miss Kuhn today. Plunges hit the nail on the head there, and there will have to be a couple of signings in January just to give us that extra wee bit, just to push forward into the second half of the season.
Yeah, that's the thing. For me, we spoke about Yang. Yang was getting a lot of opportunities from being a sub, and he was, when he was coming on in those short cameos, he was looking like, far from polished, far from the answer, but he was doing some good stuff. So I think there was always that wee bit of hope that he was maybe turning a corner. I wouldn't go as far to say it's pressure and folding, but he's certainly proven that he's not up to scratch to be a starter and to be depended on to find some magic. The old term gets thrown about of he looks like a guy that won a raffle, and as much as I hate to say it, I think it was very, very accurate. He's one of these guys that he's like 10% good or fascinating and 90% garbage. And the way I would describe him is he always looks as if he's in a rush to do nothing. Every time he receives the ball, he's outstretching and launching, he's lunging at it to control it. There's nothing really there there's no real great level of finesse, control. He looks the epitome of a young, raw player that's still learning his craft. And unfortunately for him, at a club like us, we don't have that room for passengers in that. We then went and we got Palmer later into the game, and he came on, and God forbid, that's the thing. When you start turning to Palmer to change the game, then you're in a bad place. And I think I counted out of 7 attempts to take his man, he only done it once.
I didn't want to. Didn't want to commit his man. Turned back several times. Didn't want to know.
And these are the problems that we've got. But Yang aside, we have a slightly better with Maeda out there. There isn't too much going on there as well. What was it for you? Obviously, people are saying, and I'm looking at the comments here now, this is what I just want to say, a typical Goodwin team, 10 men behind the ball. I spoke to my old man and my mother about this, and that was what they were preaching. Oh, what you meant to do now? What I would say is, for me, is not concern. Maybe that's too hard a word. But do you feel that, I'll say it's not for Dundee United to go, God, Celtic are in town, we better start playing fast-flowing football, otherwise we'll get slaughtered. That's not their problem. They've got to play what they do what they've got to do by whatever means to get either a win or not lose. It's as simple as that. It's up to us as the better team with a wealth of talent, etc., to find ways around that. I just feel that recently, we saw this last season, and we've seen it a few times throughout various seasons, no matter who the manager is. I just feel we're starting to get a wee bit predictable at this stage, mate.
Yep. That's been discussed before. We talked about it on the last thread about nobody really wanting to take a gamble. Now, I know that there's so much emphasis on tactics and what they've been told in training. Just even with 10 minutes to go in that game, even the last 5 minutes into injury time, we're still playing these across the side of the pitch passes. We're still passing the ball back to Schmeichel, who at one point was just about in the halfway line, trying to urge forward play, momentum. We just always seem to want to do this. I don't want to make a mistake, so I'll pass the ball across the pitch. It's so unlike Celtic, some of this, and I just hope that once we get this wee kick on, hopefully we get past this period, 2nd of January, 3 points, and then build a bit of momentum. But they really need to work on just occasionally taking a gamble. Maybe I'm just old-fashioned, but what was to stop somebody in the midfield today? We've seen it in games anyway, where somebody just gets the ball and tries something a bit unorthodox. You've got big, at that point, Ida was up there, try something different, but no, it was still the same kind of, and again, we sound as if we're really picking it apart because we've, drew a game, goalless draw. It just needs a wee bit of something different at points.
No, Paul, I think you're right. I can hear in the tone of your voice, and that's the thing. We come here and we're trying to talk about a game where there's not really that much to talk about. It's just one big disappointment. And as you say, for me, I felt that none of the guys, particularly on midfield, which is, let's be honest, that's been one of our greatest assets this entire season so far. Absolutely. Cal McGregor was, as you say, phoning in. He wasn't doing anything bad, but he wasn't at the same time trying to make things tick. look, McCown, I felt that this was a game for him when I saw his name in the team sheet. It's like, right, excellent. This is tailor-made. This is a very good opportunity for him. I thought he started quite bright,
Early
but
stages,
then he very quickly faded in that game.
Yep, it's just almost like a kind of good start, high energy, was pressing everything. At one point, he was just going by people and kind of trying to break the lines. And then when it did become apparent that they were kind of doing this camping in, we just ran out, a plan B or a plan C. But he should be, as you said, quite rightfully, taking that game today with the scuff of the neck. There is opportunity there for him to really put his stamp on this team and try and force a bit of a change in the midfield and get himself in there as a starter, which I thoroughly believe that he should be. It's, in terms of the fact of Mr. Hatate getting a jersey. I would like to see a Bernardo and McCown and McGregor midfield.
No, I think there's a good shout for that. And Hatate, we'll talk about it because I want to talk more about the performances of players rather than the action, because I use the term action extremely lightly because there was next to nothing there. That's the sad reality. That's the hard thing about doing these things. You come on, you want to talk, you want to have great points to talk about, you want to have hundreds of chances and, from the terrible to the sublime, but it was just so, as we say, it was a malaise. It was lackluster. Any adjective you want to describe something that was just completely boring and flat. And that is what we got the entire game. But in terms of some of the performances that we got in, because I think this is the main takeaway from it, people are saying that, yes, we find ourselves in a good position. We have invested in some positions. We maybe could have been looking at pushing the boat out a wee bit more in January. Or sorry, in the summer there. But in January, we'll get the old, it's quite difficult. Hopefully that's not going to be something that we're beating around the head with, because I think it's abundantly clear off the back of today and a few other performances that there's positions undoubtedly that we 100%, no matter what, need to get people in. Because yes, it's a marathon and it's not a sprint, but we're just starting to lose a wee bit of energy and a wee bit of edge with quite a lot of the season going. We can't afford to come out of January with maybe one or two players added into that squad. I'm looking at the typical one, left back position. Didn't think it was that bad today. I thought Scales was the best of the bunch at the back, trying his best that he could to get in, trying to make the play happen and show some sort of purpose. But the questions of the guys that have filled in, that names keep coming up that I've seen. What was your thoughts on what you saw with Welsh? What was your thoughts on what you saw with Ralston, particularly in that defence, mate?
Welsh and Ralston will give all they can. Now, we've seen time and time again, they will put their head on the end of things and they will try their best. They're Celtic through and through, but they're just not at the level that we need. Tony Ralston, as I say, will go. He's run through brick walls and all that. No pun intended. We've been a brickie, but we really need a bit more quality. January's a really difficult window, as we know, to get real talent. There's not always a lot of ready-made talent available in the window in January, but I think Welsh has already intimated that he wants to seek employment elsewhere or game time elsewhere, which I think he should. I think that would be good for him. But at the moment, as it stands, we kind of need him if we're going to have these parts of the season where we have to manage injuries, the likes of Carter Vickers. Today was another bit of evidence where we don't have Carter Vickers and we look like a different team. It's as simple as that. Without Carter Vickers, we just seem rudderless. That's the worry. So the combination of, Scales for all his effort and his endeavour, mixed with Welsh and, as you say, Tony trying his bit, but it's no paying off. We need to have a bit more. Again, there was that emphasis. We've seen it before. They really need to push on and push the boat out and get these guys.
I think that's true. We need to look at options. There's been chat around about what's going to happen with Welsh. There's a wee bit of interest. Is he going to move on, etc. We've also got guys like Narodsky that are just sitting there on the bench. Now, I understand, and there's a good point here that Port Chop makes where he says that the defence, it gave you the absolute fear when you see it, but when we actually look at it, they weren't really tested to get much of a sort of sense of they're not that good or otherwise. But when I look at particularly with Alston, the issues that we've got, and look, he's got Yang in front of him, which probably doesn't help matters either. But what we've been getting out of some of our defensive players has been when there's not too much happening, they're building up play, where it's the overlaps down the wing from Johnson, we sometimes see it for Valle and also Taylor. He tends to come into midfield and do the overloads a wee bit more. But our defensive guys, in the way that we play, have had their part to play in terms of attacking and building up. And I just felt that you see the step off in quality from that aspect as well, because where we were really struggling down the wing, particularly with Yang, you were getting no level of assistance out of Anthony Ralston, and it just made a frustrating situation all that bit more so.
Yeah. Earlier on, in fact, in the past few weeks, you heard a lot of interviews from Alistair Johnson talking about the relationship that he's got with Kuhn. Now, that's the only time I've actually heard players this season coming out and saying, I work really well with this player, and me and him really work together. We've got a good understanding. When they two are out the team, and Carter Vickers is now out the team, even if it is for 1 or 2 games, the alternatives are delivering that same kind of cohesive forward momentum. It's guys that are put in and they look terrified to make a mistake, and it's just get through the game type of thing. We need to have more in reserve than that.
Mm-hmm. No, the thing is, when we look at the whole game, with the way we set up, it was the real lack of pace. That's what's been sort of lacking for me. Even when we look back to the Rangers game, we've got plenty of possession now. I'll bring this up just nice and early, just for the purposes of seeing it here. So, this is how it pans out. As you'd imagine, once again, look at it, it's the absolute lion's share of the possession. The shots, the on-target bit's the real disappointing bit here. Yeah, there's blocks in there. The passing, it is what it is. We've became very accustomed to it. We're heavy-based possession-based football. 9 corners. We know that we don't really do too much in our set pieces. We've spoke till the cows come home about what we need to do at that. But I think over the piece, and this comes back to it, I understand that Dundee United sit in, they want to be compact, they want to frustrate, be robust. But see, at the end of the day, when you can come away with essentially the same amount of shots on target as a team with next to nothing in the way of possession and next to nothing in the way of actual attacking threat, that's where it becomes extremely disappointing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to get some players out of the way. We spoke about Hatate. He, for me, is a guy who really needs to pull his socks up. And I think at this moment in time, if he were to be sold in January, I'm just using it. I'm not saying I want that to. I'm just saying if that were to be the one to go, I genuinely don't think a lot of people would be losing too much sleep about it at this moment, mate.
No, I'm really surprised that Rodgers, who he's been brilliant, he is brilliant, but he talks a lot about consistency. The one thing about that midfield at the minute is inconsistency, albeit, Callum's kind of stepped off a wee bit, but I just don't understand I do not understand how Rio Hatate is a guaranteed shoe-in starter at the minute in his form. Not just today. This is obviously a reaction video for today's game, and it's far from war Celtic, but he's been playing pretty badly in the run-up to this, and we've been getting away with it, got through it in the cup final, get through it in a couple of league games leading up to it, but yeah, there definitely needs to be a wee bit of change and a wee bit of dynamic midfield invention put in there somehow, and I think McCowan gives us that.
Yeah, I mean, he does, and that's the thing. A lot of people were turning around and saying, yes, Hatate was losing possession a lot, but so was McCowan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll always get it. Can you imagine, reaction to Hatate losing the ball versus reaction to McCowan losing the ball? Yes, I get that. They were equally as bad today at points. However, over the piece, you can't say that McCowan hasn't not been better, because he has, and that I think that's it. We're just calling it. We see what I did think about Hatate today, and I don't know if that's something you picked up on. We've been criticising him for being reckless, a bit sort of slapdash, all action, and not very composed. I actually thought today he was losing the ball, but whilst being incredibly slow and cautious. Something I never think that he is. One thing I would never say is ponderous, but I don't know if it's just he's thought, I'm constantly losing the ball, doing what I normally do, but he's almost played a completely different way. He's slowed his game entirely down, and it will yielded the same results.
I don't remember him playing with this kind of ponderous malaise when he was playing under Ange. Now, I don't know, obviously we're playing a different tactical setup now that Brendan's back, but it does seem as if there's sometimes where Rio just gets, I said it in the last video, it's as if he just freezes in time. That today, we've got a break on the go, there's options and all around him. He stops and puts his foot in the ball, turns around, spots the referee, and just plays the ball to the referee. I could not have nearly taken the telly off the wall at that point. It just beggars belief for a player of his international class, and he's been great for us. But at the moment, going into this time of the year, we really need to give him a wee rest, I think. And people will say, "Well, that's Rio Hatate you're talking about." Yes, but he's playing absolutely terrible and stinking the place out.
I think we need to get back to guys really earning their crust here.
Aye.
That is the one thing that we've got to say. We've got some competition in there. I think it's just by design that you will get on. Engels comes on. He's unlucky. He's unlucky right at the end, of course.
Had a wee chance.
Again, he's a guy that unfortunately I still am adamant I don't think we'll see the best at Engels till next season. So kind of in a weird by default way, Hatate's getting a position every other week. Whereas as Liam's saying, and a lot of people are saying, Bernardo's the one that shows the most promise. So for me, I would be adamant on going forward of it being Bernardo, McCowan and McGregor. I think that is something that we really need to be looking at. Again, we've got Hibs and we've got Rangers in particular. I think that's the sensible choice, particularly for the game at Ibrox, and I'd like to see that. But we need to make people know that their place isn't assured. And that's the one thing. And so it's just because of the way that Engels has been up and down, we're kind of actually, believe it or not, a wee bit limited in the options there. It's one or the other. So it becomes a wee bit easy for them. And that's something. But a name that we do need to talk about, because it's been coming up a lot, and Big Rab says it here, it's Kyogo, mate. Where are you with Kyogo? Because it's unfashionable. But I've seen it said, and at times I can agree with it. Is Kyogo living off past success in terms of this season, mate?
Yes, there was Celtic TV at half-time had a wee video, kind of, I don't know what you call that, a wee montage of some of the goals against Dundee United historically, and there was a few belters at Kyogo. Do you remember the one where he took the first touch, it came back to him, he just hit it, and it kind of just flew right by the keeper, top corner? Things like that under Ange, obviously, and I don't want to harp on about during Ange, and that time's finished, but the drop-off and the difference from Kyogo's all-round play from what we're seeing now is night and day. We all know about it. It's just, it seems to be that he's, I don't know, he's not got that same killer instinct. He used to just rattle the ball by goalkeepers, not even need a touch. Now he seems again ponderous, where he feels like he has to take a touch. And
why do you think that is? Previously, when it was last season, we had this whole idea of the way that the manager wants to play doesn't suit what Kyogo wants to do. That was the sort of argument, if you want to call it that, last season. We started to see him getting a wee bit more involved, dropping back, getting involved in the initial build-ups of the play, and we were yielding some success from it. We then went and we've stormed all. We've picked up really how we're playing, but we are scoring from all over the pitch. We haven't really this season been dependent on a striker. We've had two strikers that have been the figurehead up front, but they've not been the source of all the goals, which is more often than not the way the Celtic have been. Is it as simple as saying it is just not suited, or is he now just starting to tail off? Is there more in the tank for Kyogo, or is it something a bit more deeper than that?
Hard to tell. Only he will really know what the story is with what's going on inside his thoughts, but he doesn't look as if he's getting into the same positions. Obviously, if you play the ball in and he's there, he'll historically he'll put the ball in the net. But is it a case of that we're not playing to his strengths? I've seen people discussing that. I don't think there's been a big difference in the terms of how we're playing and how we're getting the ball forward to front positions. It just seems as if he's not in the positions that he should be in. And when he does get the ball, he's seeming as if, like the midfield situation, he's just taking too many touches, wanting to try and do that difficult, touch where he should just be blasting his laces through the ball and what he did before and put it in the net. I think it'll come down to what happens in January. If we get any more options in terms of somebody that maybe comes in to even put pressure on Kyogo and Ida, I mean, a bit more pressure. When Ida first turned up, it was as if, right, okay, there's a bit of pressure for Kyogo. We'll start to see him, but we've We've not really seen it. I think I think Ida should have started today's game, if I'm really honest. He knew they were going to camp in.
See me look at those two chances, because the best chances of the game are undoubtedly Kyogo. There's the wee curving effort. It is what it is. There's when he kind of fresh airs it, and then of course there's, let's be honest, it's unforgivable, but I don't really know what he does with the chance he gets through on the goalkeeper. It's is it fair to say it's a concern? You know, we're seeing not quite on it, not firing, this, that, the next thing. As you say, why are we not switching it up? Why is the manager then, based on what we're seeing, why is he not playing Adam Idah? As you say, we knew it was going to be a physical battle, and I felt that whenever Adam Idah came on, that in the first 5 minutes he showed more purpose, more threat than Kyogo had for the largest part of that game. So what is it? Just simply, why do you think we're not doing it? Because it's the old, if something's not broke, don't try to fix it. Well, it kind of is broke, because, you know, how many times have we said Kyogo barely touched the ball today? He ran about and he didn't do anything. Yes, he'll maybe get that goal, but that's few and far in between at the moment. So why aren't we changing it?
Again, no, the manager will know that, and maybe it is down to just, you know, what we have in reserve is very, very little, and we've only got Idah to come in and put pressure on him. You would have seen him before, really chasing down defenders, and he still does. You know, he's still putting in work rate, but it's as if he's putting in just enough to get by. I don't know what's going on. When he gets chances as well, he's no that same clinical, ruthless kind of Kyogo. And seeing those videos at halftime today really made you sit and go, "Where's that Kyogo?" You know, and I love him. I love the wee man. I've got his signed top in the bedroom. I'm absolute Kyogo daft. I'm like Kyogo the way Paddy is with Hatate. The drop-off is very noticeable, and it's no throwing the toys at the pram or panicking because we've dropped a couple of points. Far, far from it. This has been, again, like Hatate, has been a gradual drop-off, which is now giving concern going forward.
Do you think there's room, you know, folk are saying when you're up against something like today, why not try and do something completely different? And why not play both Idah and Kyogo? You know, I think we really need to mix things up, and that's what we say. Just, you know, 5-10 minutes ago, we say, are we become predictable? Now, I agree. There's some comments saying, you know, get behind the team. Yeah, we're fully behind the team. We're fully invested in the team. What we've just got to, as we say it all the time, speak with what we see with our eyes. You know, we're commenting on what we saw and how we can improve it for the better. It's not to sit here and slag off. I think it's, you know, you look at where we are. We've not had a defeat. You know, we're in good stead. It's disappointing to drop the points. Of course it is. But it's just, again, about the circumstances. Now, I had this chat with a few other people earlier on today, and they were sort of, again, very adamant. Look, Rangers aren't going to do this and Rangers aren't going to do that. And look, we've got to look at ourselves first and foremost. But we also do have to be mindful. We've got games coming up. We've got a game against Hibs, who have been on a wee bit of a, you know, renaissance, a wee bit of resurgence, bit of wind in their sails. Let's not forget, yes, we beat them 3-0, but they made it difficult for us. We made it hard for ourselves and got there again. Not a best performance, but get there. And then, of course, we've got Rangers. They'll be feeling highly aggrieved off the back of that. It's going to be their home ground. It's going to be only their fans. And again, whether you think they are garbage or they are great, they are winning games. And they've got a wee bit of momentum, and that breaker that normally comes called the winter break isn't going to be there. So we've got to be mindful of all these things that are around us, and that's all I'm wanting to get, is a wee bit of perspective. Nothing is a given. There's no guarantees. And see right now, Paul, those two games, and I will say it as well, young boys of Bern, who are meant to be there to be slaughtered, right? Those games in particular, to my eye at least, don't look as sure a thing as they maybe should have been, or folk think they would have been, as little as 3 weeks ago.
Aye. No, totally. You're right. Football's a strange kind of sport that way, and we've seen it before where things can change. You know, we don't feel much of a threat from the other side of the city, and we have got the points and the superiority and everything else. But we just have to sit back and observe and say, at this stage in the season, do we look as robust and as free-flowing as we were at the start of the season? And you have to say, not exactly. not exactly. Players can have bad games, we know that, and everybody's entitled to a game here and there where they're not at their full optimum operating level. But I don't share this view that we're here to just pan players at all. It's an objective look at what we're seeing and trying to just think about how we can improve it. I think we could possibly see Ida starting the next 2 games area. I think Ida for the Hibs game, and I would start Ida at Ibrox, 100%.
I think it's something that we were due to get is a wee sort of curveball. And I think playing Ida is, again, just based on what we've seen, he came on and he looked very good. He looked, sharp. He was trying to get involved from the off. And as I says, all right, not getting testing the goalkeeper of the likes, but just from an initial assessment, to my eye, he'd done more. He'd done more than Kyogo. And I think Kyogo, as we says, maybe needs a reminder that he's not a shoe-in in these games. But what I also think as well we need to do is I definitely would like to see the manager come up with something different tactically.
Yeah.
Tactically, 100%. I would like to see something different. Could that be a formation change? Could that be, as we say, if you're going to play Kyogo, using him in a different role to play alongside Ida? Now, let's cast your mind back. See, as much as people want to poke fun at Neil Lennon's time there, all right? Remember back when he made the formation change in the January? The things were looking really, really sticky. He made a formation change. We came back. It was 3-5-2, and we just went out and started slaughtering teams. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be the solution here. All I'm saying is that the manager has played a very good, attractive brand of football. It has yielded great success at that front end of this sort of season. It's done well, served us well in Europe. We've found a middle ground to play in Europe. But recently, regardless of winning's the bread and butter. That's the key point. You want the points. But as we always say, we Celtic fans, we maybe do want our cake and eat it. There's that expectancy as well to win in a certain style and with a certain bit of grace. And I also just think back to Brendan Rodgers' first term at Celtic. This is it feels a wee bit similar to me. You remember, first season was seamless there. His first season for us this time wasn't seamless, but it picked up. But then second season, we started to hit that wee malaise where we just sort of started to feel a bit too samey, a bit too similar, and teams really sussed us out. And it was death by possession for us as viewers of the game as well. I just feel that that's something that we need to do, mate. That's something that I really, really need to do. And for you, is that new personnel? Is it reshuffling the personnel that we've got? Or is it, as I say, is it just a completely different formation?
That's the thing. We're only about, a month, maybe 2 months away in history from looking absolutely brilliant. We were looking at the European games. We were looking at everything in front of us and thinking, bring it on. We'll do this, we'll do that. Now, obviously, things have changed slightly where we've dropped some points today. No the end of the world. I think what will come to be a benefit is the next 2 games, the teams that we're playing will come out and actually have a go. The team that we've got, if we get a couple of injuries and we're up against a sticky defence like what we've seen today, where it's a full team sitting in their own, box defending deep, that's where we struggle. If we're playing against teams that will come out and have a go at us, then we'll be able to get in about it and pick holes and make be successful that way. I think that's what we'll see in the next 2 games. I think that's what's needed. When we're playing against these teams that just put their backs to the wall and defend for 90 minutes, we had chances, we never took them. We move on. And I think the next 2 games will be telling because we will have people coming out and actually playing a bit of football and attacking us where we can get in behind. But we do need to look towards January. If MD thinks that the squad getting into January is absolutely perfect, 1 or 2 injuries in that squad and we are a wee bit frail at times, so we do have to build towards getting that strengthened.
No, and that is the thing. We're playing well enough. You look at our record, we're in a better position we were last season. But
Absolutely.
as I say, that doesn't make it acceptable. That's all I would say. Is it's easy. People think you're losing sight by having a wee dig or a wee criticism of the performance. Not at all. I just think that you would be foolish. You would be very, very foolish and naive to think that we couldn't hit a rut.
Aye.
9 points is huge. Of course it is. But it's still 9 points with 3 games against Rangers. Whether you think they are up to standard or not, that's irrelevant. It's still very much up to ourselves to get the job done. And as I say, I just feel that looking at the games that are coming up, they just don't look quite as smooth and plain sailing as perhaps you'd expect it to be. It's never going to be. And, you'll know yourself with your age like myself. In years gone by, 9 points would have seen massive, because there was no points where you were every other week. You were maybe just ahead by 3. You were ahead by 2, you were ahead by 4, whatever, and it was nip and tuck. Maybe we've been spoiled in terms of just, laying to the sword absolutely everybody in front of us, where I kind of, it sounds daft, but I kind of look at points leads now and I think to myself, nine's roughly about the sweet spot, and I think anything under that, you're like, I don't really like that. Does that seem right? Is that strange times, Paul?
No, things can change, as we've seen before in the game. We've got a stranglehold on it, and we're absolutely brilliant, and we're doing everything right. Today has just been a wee kind of bad day at the office, where we've struggled to really get behind this stubborn defence. We've not took our chances. That's it. It's in the future. It's in the past. We just look towards the future. 9 points. We have to keep just building and getting more points on the board, making sure that we just win what's ahead of us. I think once we get to the January window, and then we come at the other end of that, we'll be all good.
Yeah, I mean, we'll look at, just to briefly touch on the end of the games, just because there's that very little to talk about it. I've seen a few folk, and obviously, again, a few certain other fans on social media saying about VAR, and apparently it's a pattern assistance because Rio should have been sent off. Nothing in that, mate. Nothing in that, eh?
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Again, this is now going to be the shape of things to come, probably for the rest of the season, maybe for the rest of my life. Every game, VAR will be trotted out as being, this should have happened, that should have happened. Play, put the ball in the net. At the end of the day, if you don't do that, you don't win games. And today we never done that. We never won the game.
Yeah. And so we look at January, because there's undoubtedly, we do need players in, right? We've been linked with Kieran Tierney, okay? Now, I just want to talk about this. But we know we need to add quality. Is he quality? Yes, he is. I can understand people having their reservations over the injury thing, okay? But if it's going to be what supposedly it is in terms of massive pay cut, wanting to come back, then yeah, that's a gamble I'm more than willing to take. Celtic need more than Kieran Tierney. The defence is obviously, particularly that left back position, something we want to firm up moving forward in the season, but it doesn't solve the issues that we've got today, does it?
No. I would say that position has, as we know, has been a bit of a problematic position. Kieran coming back, nobody will ever doubt his, Celtic. He's a Celtic fan through and through. He'll need to take a significant drop in his 6-figure wages, I believe, to come back. His injuries are very well documented. I wouldn't like for Kieran to come back and be under pressure to play every week with his injuries. If he could, all good and well, but I don't think he's that player anymore. I think it would be coming back, but we'd still have to have cover full time in there to bolster that position. It would be great to see him back, but it does seem a bit of a gamble. Nobody will ever doubt that he'll give his all, 100%, but it just feels a wee bit. I hope there's some other names in Brendan's phone book that he can get in as well.
There's no doubt. We've covered that today and in some of the games before. The problem that we've had is we've not been getting our foot on the ball. We've not been getting the ball out wide. We've not been creating that width. We've seen that with great success, as we say, early on in the season. And I say early on in the season, even as recent as now, it's maybe I'd say probably since the Leipzig game. I know I keep using that as a reference point, but maybe since the Leipzig, that's where we've maybe seen the bit of the drop-off from Maeda and Kuhn. It's understandable. Maeda's an absolute machine, but even he must have a point where he gets tired, because we've been going to that well constantly, week in, week out. Kuhn, again, he's been brought in, going to that well constantly, and he's due to have a dip. The names have come back up. Balakisha's came back up from Antwerp, and other names, as he's just brought back in. Obviously, Tierney's name's getting swirled about there. There's talk of they're returning Kenny from Shamrock Rovers and things like that as well. But really, we need, is it wingers? Is it a striker?
Mhm.
How many players for you in the ideal world? Let's just say that Kieran Tierney's a given. What do we need? And also another name that's come up. Do you think it's just pie in the sky? Is the idea that Jota's fallen out with Rennes again? It's another terrible
I would
move
take
for
him
him. It's
back.
not working.
I would take Jota back absolutely all day long. Absolutely brilliant player for us. We know exactly what he's got to offer. We've seen it in his spell here. He lit the place up absolutely. I think we're short of about another, I would say, 4 players. That being another centre half, 2 wingers, and another striker. If they were to be satisfied in those positions, were to be just bolstered, it's not a crisis by any stretch of imagination, but they are positions that I would just like to see a bit of extra competition. I was on here the other week and I was saying about James Forrest. I hope I've not put a jinx on him. I says, James Forrest is a good option. He leaves the final with a boot on.
Oh, I know.
We do need competition in these positions.
We see whilst we're waiting out for the transfer window to open up, right?
Mhm.
We've spoke about guys like Palmer. We've spoke about Yang. Disappoints. It's what it is, right? See, look at again. I know it's a rolling a dice. I'm just throwing it out there. See, whilst you've got nothing to lose and you're looking for a wee bit of creative spark, why not look at the boy Cummins to have him sitting on your bench? Right? Why not have someone like him sitting on your bench? We look at, again, I know you don't like it, we look across the city and they brought in the boy Egeman, right? Now, I get it, he's maybe a more rounded player than young Cummins, but what does he have in common? Young, fearless, ambitious. He'll just try things. By and large, he's been a success for them. Bringing in somebody, trying something different, right? I think he should be the starting striker. Next 2 games, quite comfortably, that should be what's happening, right?
Mhm.
But when it comes to switching it round, when it comes to chasing a goal, rather than, as we say, bringing on Yang or bringing on Engels or just however it may well be, just try something different. No harm in doing it.
No harm at all. I don't know what else young Cummings can do. I mean, how many goals has he scored in the B team?
I've lost count, but it's
23?
it's hitting record levels. I think it was about 23,
23
24, yeah. Aye.
I watched him in the Glasgow Cup. He looked easily somebody that could walk in and at least be on the bench, if not getting a run out for the first team in a cameo. I also thought the big boy centre half, whose name escapes me, looked the part. There's several players in the B team that could be easily getting replacing people like Yang, replacing people like Palmer on the bench. And Brendan Rodgers quite recently did say, I will look to the B team, that'll be the first place I look. Well, now's the time to maybe have a wee look and over this kind of patchy, kind of wee bit of run of form in terms of the drop-off, including today, then give the likes of Cummings a run. He's got absolutely bags of talent.
We'll see, even with the talky Kenny coming back for Shamrock Rovers again, very good record. Take it as you find it. The League of Ireland, is it miles off some of the games we would play in Scotland? Probably not.
Probably not so much.
He's been playing conference again. The standard might not be fantastic, but European and playing well there. Now, if we bring him back and we've got Cummins, these are guys who are they should be just, for me, they're in the idea zone. They're in the idea. They're not the solution. They're in the idea zone. They're in the option zone. A striker, as Brown Warriors saying, we need somebody to challenge Kyogo. We need to actually go as far to replace him. I don't think Ida was ever going to be replacing because he was always seen as being it. But is it time really to go once again, whether that's 9 million or whatever it is, and look to truly, properly replace him, to essentially have 3 what you would class as potential first pick strikers. Back to the days of old, Larsson, Sutton and Hartson type situation.
My gut reaction would be that anything like that and any large spending on another striker would probably have to wait to the summer. I don't think that could happen in January. There's never a wealth of names or a wealth of big money moves happening in the January window. It will be loans. It will be seeing who we can get. but it would be great. I mean, Kyogo's, what age is Kyogo anyway? 27?
He's late 20s, aye. I
So,
mean, there's still a lot of football in him in terms of
absolutely.
us, but I think maybe sometimes players just hit their maximum. Now, I'm not saying by any stretch that he's done.
Oh no, I
No,
hope he proves us absolutely wrong.
don't misconstrue that. I think there's more to come. There's still, there's a great player that we've seen that's there. Maybe he's just in one of those phases and he needs to pick himself up and he's down his luck. But he needs to do it fast. But at the same time, some players maybe just hit their natural peak where it's time for them to move on. Would we sell him? I really don't know. But I do agree that I think that we need to get someone in, and we need to get someone in who's properly going to challenge. I'm still a bit confused. I like what I see from Adam Ida, but I still really don't know what a Brendan Rodgers striker really truly is. We look at Dembele. He wasn't signed by Rodgers. A lot of folk forget that.
Yeah.
We'll look at Edward as well. So I'm surprised because Ida's neither Dembele or Edward in stature and style.
Ida obviously came in the tail end of last season, scored a lot of hugely important goals. By his own admissions, didn't have a great pre-season, and I don't think this season has had any level of consistency, really. His numbers say that. But I think if he was to be given maybe a prolonged run as being the man up front, number 9, get the ball into your striker and just play him consecutively, maybe with Cummings in the mix as well, then that might change. That's my own thoughts. I think if you just give him more game time, more starts, and literally that would change probably the way we play as well. So maybe that's why there's been this kind of bit part performances, because Rodgers wants to stick to the tactics about supporting Kyogo.
I think that's true. I think when we look at it, what have we been done? Possession for possession's sake. A lot of people are complaining about being slow, being laboured, side to side, back and forward, shoehorn it across the middle, building for the back. Don't want to lose it, just holding on to it, not taking the chances. Now, I'm not saying that we go route one, but you can understand that, see, whenever we're flat and we're not getting our wingers, getting our foot in the ball, taking it with the throat and trying to hit that byline and get it across. See, when we're not getting that and we're in that phase, why are we doing it? It's because we're hoping, hope upon hope, that there'll be a wee tiny gap and one of them will just spot one of those Kyogo runs. But as we've seen today, when you've got teams like Dundee United, and I say it, it's not up to them to play expansive football. They've done what they have to do. We can't sit and moan about the way other teams play. It's up for us to find solutions and ways to play through that. But I do agree that part of the reason when we experience these problems is because we're trying to cater to Kyogo's runs in behind, pass and find the gaps. Whereas that, see, if you get you've got Ida there, you can fizz one fast into his feet because he's going to have the power to hold it up, or you can go direct and you can shell it in. Now, I'm not saying Celtic start going to launch ball, but those options are there, and I just feel that it would maybe give a wee bit more freedom of options to the players. If something isn't happening, that they know they can just aim for him, whether it's on the deck or in the air, aim for him, a target man.
Kyogo today should still have been able to spring and get in behind that defence. That's frustrating that he hasn't, and when he did, he fluffed his lines. Either in a game like today, now I've not played as a striker for many, many years, but up against a team like that who are just camped in, Ida would have been perfect for me. I just don't understand. When I seen the team, I thought, right, okay, Kyogo starts. Okay, we'll see where we go. Obviously, looking back on it now, hindsight's a wonderful thing. But you saw with the chances that Kyogo got, it just didn't look comfortable. Didn't look comfortable on the ball or off the ball. He just seems to have lost his way a wee bit. But I think I would definitely say Ida for me for the next 2 games starts easily.
Yeah, definitely. Well, as we say, it was more a conversation today, Paul, about performances of players and potential solutions rather than the action, because it was, as we say, very, very lacklustre. There wasn't too much there to speak about. The manager didn't seem too disappointed, didn't seem too despondent. He actually says that there was good points of the game. He's always going to be positive. Of course he is. I don't necessarily agree with it. I want to know what these really good spells in the game were. But, I think it's pretty clear that we've got a home game coming up, Boxing Day, against Hibs. Yes, Hibs will have a wee bit of the wind in their sails. They'll be feeling good about themselves. But coming back before playing Rangers, a home game, it's an opportunity to really turn things around. We need to really start picking it up. We need to do it fast. I agree with you. I think that we need to get those changes in. Hopefully, whatever these wee illnesses that are in and around the squad don't manifest themselves, because even against Hibs, with the way we've seen it before, I wouldn't want us to begin in with a similar amount of changes as we did today. And more importantly, I definitely don't want that getting into a game against Rangers. People are saying it's important for us, get the next two out the way, get that Morbey breakwater, get that back up to 12 points, and I think take it for there. January can't come soon enough for me, and getting the game against Rangers can't come soon enough for me either, mate. Are you in the same camp with that one?
Absolutely. As I said earlier on, it feels a wee bit as if we've been getting away with it. With the great season to date, nobody's here saying that we're in trouble or anything like that. We are where we are. We've been really, really good all season. There's just this wee late kind of term between now and January where we seem to be kind of tripping over things a wee bit and making heavy work of what should be games where we should be getting 3 points. And today, that is exactly one of those situations that I don't think many people would have taken that in their cupping as a draw.
No, absolutely not.
Going ahead, players are entitled to a dip in form. That's fine. You're always going to get ups and downs, but we just need that wee bit of depth to support the players that we've got, so that when they do take this wee dip, we've got reserve that can come in, and that's where January's crucial for us.
Absolutely, and it can't come quick enough. There'll be people across the city celebrating. It's kind of funny, that, isn't it? I think they drew one each with Dundee United, did they not? This season, but that is what it is. But that's the thing, they're going to get a wee bit of wind in their sails. They're going to get a wee bit of excitement around them. The important thing is everybody's saying 9 points ahead, still very much in the driving seat.
Absolutely.
One cup in the trophy cabinet so far. The next two games are vital.
Yeah,
it's important. Win Hibs, of course. Rangers, absolutely, I want to beat them. But most importantly is just simply do not lose. Keep the status quo,
right.
Rebuild and take it for there.
Yeah.
We are entitled to be in a wee bit of a dip. You can't have it always the best. But I think it is fair to say, we've said it time throughout the course of the show, there is room for improvement. It's just about acknowledging that. And I think the manager will be looking at that and definitely taking some action on that. I'm feeling a bit disappointed today, Paul, but it's not the end of the world.
Aye, it's as I said, we've got no divine right to turn up and win any game, but we should be making a better fist of today. We didn't. It's in the past. We just need to look ahead, get a starting 11 that's in a better shape for Hibs, and bring on the 2nd of January.
Absolutely. Well, Paul, thanks for joining us so late on. Thanks everybody else for joining in here so late on as well. Listen, few days away for Christmas. We'll get the game on Boxing Day. We'll be returning on Boxing Day to talk about that one. We're not going to be here on Christmas Day. Let's get real. Right, so there'll be no preview of the game. It's just not happening. But we'll do something after the event. So anyway, till the next time, everyone take care of yourselves. When it comes around, enjoy your Christmas, whatever you decide to do. And of course, hail, hail. We'll see you all later. Bye-bye.